They all had mouths when you stayed. Every last one of them. Barking, laughing, talking down like you were just background noise in their precious little story. You showed them love, patience. Hell, you even tried to explain yourself. Again and again. Like your words were some kind of charity, begging for just 1 ounce of understanding. And what did they do, huh? Rolled their eyes, laughed behind your back, acted like you were just another fool hanging on. But the second you vanished, boom, dead silence. Funny how the noise dies when the real one walks away. They didn't believe you'd do it. That's the part that gets me. They thought you'd stay forever in the dirt while they danced on your spine. They got comfortable. Comfortable with your loyalty, with your kindness, with your silence. You gave them peace. They gave you pain. You gave them support. They gave you scars. And still, you tried to be good. But here's the truth. They didn't want to hear. Sometimes, the kindest ones are the most dangerous when they stop talking. 'Cause they've seen it all. They just stayed quiet about it. People don't fear loud. They fear calm. They fear the one who stops explaining, stops begging, stops caring. When you dipped without a word, they felt it. That's the kind of absence that screams louder than presence. You ever seen someone laugh until they realized the joke was on them? That's what you left behind. Regret, confusion, silence. The aftermath of underestimating someone who kept warning them with nothing but patience. But let's talk about you. Yeah, you. You thought leaving was weakness, didn't you? Thought silence meant surrender. Nah. Let me break it to you clean. Vanishing is a power move. Not running. Not hiding. Not quitting. It's checkmate. It's letting them choke on every damn thing they never said when they had the chance. You walking away wasn't the end of you. It was the end of their fantasy that you'd always be available. Always be soft. Always be stupid enough to stay. See, people only realize your value in the echo, when your voice ain't there no more, when your energy's gone, when your silence fills the room like smoke and they can't breathe in it. That's when they panic. That's when they realize, damn, they were the real one. But by then you're gone. And they're just left with memories and mistakes. And the worst part? No closure. Just the black hole where your presence used to live. You disappeared, and that hurt more than any fight, any scream, any insult. Silence is a blade they didn't see coming, and now it's cutting them every day. Every laugh they fake, every smile they force, every name they scroll past, hoping yours shows up. But it never does. You became a ghost with teeth, a shadow that bites. And every time they remember what they did, they don't remember a fight. They remember you, leaving without a damn word. So yeah, they didn't believe you'd do it, but you did. And now they're stuck looking in every crowd, every screen, every dream, trying to find a version of you they can't replace. Keep vanishing. Keep rising. Let them talk to the absence. Let them feel what it means to lose something real, permanently. They kept telling themselves you'd never go, that you'd always crawl back, beg a little, explain a lot, like you owed them a damn presentation for your own worth. That's what people do, see? They build this illusion in their heads. They convince themselves that the quiet ones are weak, that the ones who don't bark aren't dangerous. But the real ones, the ones who've been bleeding in silence for years, they don't make announcements. They don't flip tables. They just vanish. One day, you're there, giving your heart out like it's candy, and the next, gone. Like a ghost with unfinished business. And that's what shakes them. Not the anger, not the yelling, but the sudden nothing. The silence that don't beg, don't explain, don't chase. You see that silence? That's when they start looking in the mirror, start asking themselves questions they ain't ready for. And that's when the guilt eats them alive. You were never weak for staying. You were loyal. That's a different beast entirely. But people like to spit on loyalty. Treat it like it's some kind of doormat. They say thank you with lies. They say I love you with distance. And every time you gave a piece of yourself, they just pocketed it like spare change. Didn't even look at the value, just tucked it away like you were replaceable, disposable, temporary. But see, there's nothing temporary about a soul like yours. You loved deep. You stood strong. You believed when there was no reason left to believe. And that scared them. People don't know what to do with something real, so they play with it, break it, doubt it, until one day the light they thought would always be on just cuts out. And when you left, they didn't just lose someone. They lost everything they pretended not to need. The peace, the presence, the understanding. You weren't just a person. You were a sanctuary. A place where their chaos made sense. A place where their noise was accepted. And they thought they'd have that forever. Thought you'd never get tired, never hit a limit. But everyone's got a line, and they kept pushing like yours didn't exist. And when you finally said nothing and walked off that emotional battlefield, you flipped the script. You made them sit in the silence, made them face the loss. No words, no warnings, just that cold air where warmth used to live. They thought the storm was in your voice, but the real storm came when you stopped speaking. You became the lesson they never wanted, but always needed. A walking consequence, a reminder that love, unappreciated, turns into distance. That kindness misused becomes absence. And that the ones they took for granted eventually become the ghosts of their own bad decisions. You didn't need to destroy them. You just needed to disappear. And in that disappearance, you did more damage than 1,000 arguments could have done. Because now, every time they look back, they'll see how they lost you. And realize it was their own damn fault. And that is how the silent ones win. Now they're left retracing every moment, every word, every smirk they threw your way like you were some kind of joke, digging through memories, trying to find the exact second it all started falling apart. But the truth? It wasn't sudden. You were breaking slowly, piece by piece, smile by smile. You were shattering in the quiet, dying in the background while they thought you were just fine. That's how people fool themselves, thinking silence means peace, when most of the time silence is a scream that nobody's listening to. You didn't disappear overnight. You just stopped hoping, stopped believing they'd see you, understand you, value you. You watched them celebrate others, praise the fake, worship the loud, while you stood there, real and raw, holding loyalty in a world full of clowns. You see, that's the part they'll never admit, that you were the only one who stayed solid while everything around them was plastic. They were busy chasing cheap thrills, empty noise, validation from strangers. And there you were, present, stable, quiet. Not because you didn't have something to say, but because you chose not to waste your breath on people who heard you but never listened. That's the difference. You weren't silent because you were weak. You were silent because you already saw the truth behind their eyes. You already knew the ending before it happened. You just waited to see if they'd change the script. Spoiler alert, they didn't. And now they carry you like a scar, a reminder, not just of who you were, but of what they lost by being too blind, too proud, too caught up in their own damn noise. They walk around pretending they're fine, pretending they don't care, but the weight of your absence crushes them every time something good happens. And they can't share it with you. Every time something bad happens, and they remember you used to be the one who'd fix it. Now, there's no fix, no soft place to land, just cold air and flashbacks. That's the price of losing someone who gave too much for too long. And let's be real, it hurt you too. Walking away wasn't easy. You loved them, cared for them, hoped that one day they'd look at you and finally see what was in front of them. But you woke up. That's what they didn't expect. You stopped wishing. You stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even notice you were cut. And that shift, that's what made you dangerous. Not because you turned cold, but because you stopped explaining the heat they were standing in. You let them burn in their own ignorance. You became the silence they never prepared for, the lesson they never thought they'd have to learn. And the worst part? You did it with class. No drama, no announcement, no revenge. You just left, quietly, powerfully. And now, the silence you left behind is teaching them more than your words ever could. And let me tell you something. They feel it every damn day. The silence, it echoes louder than any argument they could have won. It haunts the places where your voice used to live. The quiet is loud now, Because it ain't just absence, it's judgment. It's the consequence of never listening when you spoke soft, of never appreciating the calm before the storm. They underestimated the cost of losing someone who kept them grounded, who saw through their chaos and chose to stay anyway. And now they sit with that loss, pretending they're fine, pretending they're untouched. But deep down, they're wrecked. Because you didn't leave like the others. You didn't scream. You didn't fight. You just vanished and made them sit with themselves. You gave them everything and asked for the bare minimum in return. Respect, honesty, a little damn loyalty. That's all. Not miracles, not gold. Just basic human decency. And they couldn't even give you that. They were too busy playing games. Too caught up in who's watching. In what makes them look important, in what feeds their ego. They weren't thinking long term. They weren't thinking, what if this person disappears? Because in their heads you were permanent, and that's their mistake. They thought loyalty meant forever, no matter how bad they treated you. They thought patience meant permission. They thought your silence was weakness. But what they didn't know was that you were counting every cut, every time they looked away when you needed them most, every moment you showed up for them when they couldn't even ask how you were doing. You remembered it all, and you filed it away, quiet, until one day your silence turned into your absence, and that absence turned into their punishment. Now they replay the same memories you tried so hard to create with love. Only difference is, this time they're alone. There's no smile across the table. No voice on the phone saying, I got you. Just regret. Just empty space where something real used to be. And they don't get a second chance. Not because you hate them, but because you outgrew the pain. You outgrew the cycle. You saw yourself in the mirror and realized you deserve more than confusion, than crumbs, than being an option. You don't water a dead plant. You don't bleed for people who watched you die slowly and said nothing. You walked away, not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about yourself. And that's the move they never expected. See, people think you'll keep breaking for them if you love them enough. They think they can treat you like trash, and you'll sweep yourself up for their comfort. But love without respect, that's self-destruction. And you chose survival. You chose evolution. You became the version of yourself they feared the most, the one who no longer needs them. And now they're stuck searching for pieces of you and people who ain't even built like you. Good luck with that. And what kills them most is knowing they can't rewind it, can't undo what they did, can't unsay the things they threw like knives into your chest, can't unchoose the moments they picked everyone but you. You gave them the realest version of yourself, unfiltered, loyal, deep, and they spit on it like it was nothing, like you were just another name, another body, another soul to pass the time. But you weren't passing through. You were the destination. You were the one they were supposed to build with, but instead, they built walls around their ego, around their pride, around their guilt. And now, those walls are closing in, and the one person who could have helped them break free, gone. Not because you wanted revenge, but because you finally realized that no one's gonna save you but you. People like them only wake up when it's too late, when the silence starts to eat at their mind, when they scroll through conversations that don't exist anymore, when your name doesn't light up their phone, and your voice doesn't check in at 2 a.m. That's when they break. That's when they really feel what you were carrying in silence. But by then, it's already done. You already left the room, closed the door, burned the blueprint, and they're left walking around, trying to build back something they destroyed themselves. You see, you didn't cut them off to hurt them. You cut them off because keeping them around was killing you. Slowly, quietly, like poison, dripping into your spirit every day while you smiled and said, "It's okay." But it wasn't. It never was. You outgrew the circus, the mind games, the manipulation dressed as affection. You realize that real love doesn't come with explanations, doesn't ask you to shrink yourself, doesn't leave you wondering if you're enough. You were already enough. They just weren't ready for it. And now they gotta deal with the version of you that doesn't explain, doesn't chase, doesn't sit in rooms where their presence is louder than your peace. You turned your back, not in bitterness, but in survival. Because one day you woke up and said, "I'm not begging anyone to recognize my worth ever again." And that was the shift that changed everything. Now they sit in rooms full of noise and still feel alone. 'Cause you were the soul in the chaos, the heartbeat they didn't know they needed until the silence took it away. And the sick part is, they'll never find another you. They'll try, of course. They'll scroll, they'll swipe, they'll flirt, they'll chase, but it won't hit the same. Because real connection, that doesn't come in numbers. It comes in depth. And you were deep. Deeper than they were ever ready for. So now, they get the surface. While you rise in silence, unstoppable, untouched, unbothered, becoming everything they said you'd never be. The second you stopped letting their doubt define your direction. They told you you'd never make it without them. Remember that? Said you were too emotional, too soft, too damn attached to survive on your own. But what they didn't realize, what they refused to see, is that your silence wasn't weakness, it was preparation. You were watching, studying, enduring. You were stacking every betrayal like bricks in a foundation. While they were laughing, you were learning. While they were playing games, you were getting stronger. They mistook your loyalty for dependency. But the truth? You were never dependent. You were just choosing to stay. You were giving them the chance to do right by you. But when they wasted that chance, you turned all that pain into power. And now, every step you take away from them is a reminder that they built the road you're walking down, brick by brick, with every lie, every insult, every time they looked the other way when you needed them the most. And here's the part that burns the deepest. You didn't just walk away. You leveled up, quietly, without making a scene, without broadcasting your wins. You just started moving different. You stopped showing up for the people who couldn't even show up for a text. You stopped asking if they were okay, stopped giving them chances they didn't earn. You went ghost on the ones who used your heart like a crutch and called it love. And in that silence, you didn't just disappear. You evolved. You became something they can't reach anymore. And that's what kills them. Not that you left, but that they know deep down they could have had the best, the rarest, the most real soul they'll ever come across. And they threw it away like trash. Let them sit with that. Let them drown in it. 'Cause that's what they chose. You were their miracle wrapped in flesh, and they treated you like a backup plan. But now, they scroll through your life from a distance, pretending it doesn't affect them, while it eats them alive inside. They act like they're proud of you, like they always knew you had it in you. But behind the fake smiles and cold screens, they're bleeding, because they know damn well you didn't need them. They needed you. You were the one who made things better just by existing. You were the calm in their storm, the one who could sit in silence and still make them feel heard. And now, they've got noise all around and no peace. People around them, but no presence. Texts from strangers, but no connection. They lost the one who actually gave a damn. And the worst part is, they know they'll never get that again. And you don't even hate them. That's the wild part. You just outgrew the illusion that you had to hurt to be loved, that you had to stay to prove your worth, that if you gave enough, they'd finally see you. But love that needs proof is love that was never real to begin with. You stopped bleeding to keep the bond alive. You stopped giving CPR to what was already dead. And in that moment, the version of you they used to know died. The new you, the one who don't chase, don't beg, don't explain, that version scares them. Because now you're everything they said you couldn't be without them. And isn't that the cruel irony? The very thing they mocked you for, the sensitivity, the depth, the silence, the way you loved too damn much, is the same thing they're searching for now in every hollow soul they meet. But it's gone. You're gone. You ain't coming back. and they know it. You see, people never think they'll lose you until they do. They treat you like an option until you become a memory, a ghost with eyes that saw too much. They thought you were soft because you didn't bite, but the softest ones, they burn the hardest when they finally ignite. You stayed too long, gave too much, but when you left, you didn't just disappear. You elevated, you went higher, and now the air where you breathe, they can't survive in it. Now they're choking on guilt, that slow, bitter kind that creeps in when the noise dies down. It hits them late, during quiet nights, in between fake laughs, when the mask slips and they remember you. Not just your voice, not just your presence, but your impact. 'Cause you didn't just exist in their life. You changed it. You shifted things, gave it meaning, gave them something real. And they threw it away trying to impress people who wouldn't even show up at their funeral. That's what stings. The realization that they let go of gold for glitter. Now they're stuck with empty company, empty connections, empty hearts, and your silence. A silence that don't speak, but still screams. And here's the twist. They'll never admit it. Pride won't let them. They'll act like it was mutual, like things just drifted, but they know the truth. You didn't drift, you disappeared. You stopped playing a game they kept rigging. You stopped arguing with people who only listened to respond. You stopped waiting for them to meet you halfway when they never even took a single damn step. You didn't fall out. You outgrew it all. The disrespect, the confusion, the one-sided effort. You left not because you were angry, but because you were done explaining to people who already made up their minds about you. And now you shine in silence. You win without a crowd. You build without approval. You heal in private. And they watch from the shadows, too ashamed to say what's been choking them for months. I lost someone I'll never replace. That's the power of walking away without a single threat, without a single word, just movement, forward, quiet, relentless. You didn't need closure, you became it. You didn't need revenge, you became the reminder. And they'll feel you every time they reach for something real and come up empty. Let them feel it. Let them sit in the silence they once ignored. Let them carry the weight of what if and should've and maybe one day. Because that day, it passed, and so did you. Not bitter, not broken, just better. Far better than who you were when they thought you'd never leave, and far, far above the place they left you in when they thought you were never gonna rise. And now, every room you ever stood in feels colder without you. Every conversation lacks that depth you used to bring. You weren't just another person in the crowd. You were the anchor, the light in the dark, the one who asked the right questions when no one else even noticed they were hurting. You felt things deeply. You listened when no one else did. You saw through the lies, the masks, the performances, and they hated that. Because the truth is, real scares people. Depth terrifies the shallow. You made them uncomfortable by simply being authentic in a world addicted to pretending. You reminded them of what they buried deep, of the parts of themselves they wanted to forget. And when someone reflects your truth back at you, it's either healing or humiliating. Depends on whether you're ready for it. They weren't. So they mocked what they didn't understand. They pushed away what they couldn't control, and now they sit with the consequences of that fear, wondering how they ever let something so real slip through their hands. You gave them chance after chance, forgave them more times than you even forgave yourself. You bit your tongue to keep the peace. You dimmed your light so theirs wouldn't feel so small. You sacrificed your own needs just to hold it all together. And they didn't see it. Or maybe they did, and they just didn't care. They fed off your strength like parasites, draining your energy, your love, your patience. They took your presence for granted and your silence as weakness. But you were never weak. You were enduring. You were collecting every piece of yourself they shattered. And when you finally had enough to rebuild, you left without a goodbye. Because what's the point of saying farewell to someone who never really saw you in the first place? Now they're surrounded by noise, but none of it fills the void you left. They're surrounded by people, but none of them feel like home. They chased shallow connections, thinking love was replaceable. But they're learning now, some people, you don't get twice. Some souls are once-in-a-lifetime storms that you either shelter in or get swept away by. And they got swept. You were the calm and the chaos, the comfort and the mirror. And they failed to hold you because they never thought they'd need to. But now they wake up every day, haunted by the version of themselves that fumbled the best thing they ever had. And the beauty of it, you didn't have to scream, didn't have to expose them, didn't have to prove a damn thing. Your silence did the talking, your growth did the shouting. You moved in silence and let their conscience handle the rest. That's real power. Not vengeance, not revenge, just discipline, just peace, just success they can't touch, can't copy, can't reach, because they ain't built for where you're going. They were only built for the version of you that needed them. And that version dead and buried. Now it's just you and the road ahead, cleaner, quieter, stronger, and finally, yours. And as you walk that road alone now, there's something different in your stride. Something colder. Something earned. It's not bitterness. Nah. It's clarity. You see things for what they are now, not what you hoped they'd be. That's the pain of growth. It burns away the illusions. You used to look at people and see potential. Now you see patterns. Used to make excuses for why they couldn't love you right. Now you just understand they didn't want to. And that's the knife twist most people never recover from. realizing someone could have treated you right but chose not to. Not because you weren't worthy, but because they weren't ready to rise to your level. They wanted you low. They needed you confused, because your light made their shadows nervous. And the moment you started seeing clearly, you became a threat. Not because you changed, but because you finally stopped shrinking. Now they gotta sit with that loss. And it ain't the kind of loss that fades with time. It's the kind that lingers, like a song that reminds them of the days when you were still answering the phone. Like a scent in a place they thought they forgot. Like an old message they reread at 2 a.m., wishing they said more, wishing they did more. But the past don't negotiate. You gave them chapters, and they tore out the pages. Now they want a sequel to a story they killed themselves. And here you are, rewriting the whole book without them. They wanted to be the main character in your life, but they didn't realize they were the villain in your evolution. And villains don't get second chances in real life. They just become examples, lessons, cautionary tales in someone else's rise. And that rise, oh, it's silent. It's surgical. You ain't out here proving anything to anyone anymore. You don't need applause, don't need validation, don't need a damn witness. Everything you're doing now, it's for you. Every late night, building your future. Every moment of peace you protected. Every boundary you enforced without guilt. That's power. That's real freedom. And they feel it. Every post they see. Every rumor they hear. Every time someone speaks your name with respect, while they're forced to pretend like they're over it. They ain't. They'll never be. Because they didn't just lose someone. They lost access to someone who could have changed their life. And no matter who comes after, no matter how much they fake it, they'll always know they fumbled you. So keep walking, keep rising. Let them talk, let them speculate, let them drown. In the silence they once thought meant nothing. You ain't bitter, you're better. Not colder, but sharper. Not broken, but rebuilt. And every step you take now is a reminder that you never needed them to win. You just needed to believe in yourself enough to leave. And once you did, the whole game changed. And what they'll never admit, what eats them alive behind closed doors, is that they thought you'd always be waiting. That no matter what they did, no matter how many times they disappeared, disrespected, or doubted you, you'd still be there. That's what they built their comfort on. Your consistency, your presence, your patience. But they never realized, even the strongest bridges collapse when walked on too carelessly. You weren't built to carry the weight of their neglect forever. You were human. And one day, something inside you snapped. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. A quiet moment where your soul whispered, "No more." And from that moment on, every second you stayed was borrowed time. You were already gone inside, just waiting for the rest of you to catch up. Now look. Look how they reach for energy that doesn't answer. Look how they scroll through your name with no reply. Look how they try to recreate what they ruined, not realizing that the magic wasn't the moment, it was you. You were the one who brought life to dead spaces, the one who made broken things feel whole. And now that you're not there to do it, everything feels off, fake, forced. Because the kind of connection you offered can't be mimicked. It can't be replaced. It was built from your depth, your empathy, your soul. And when that kind of presence leaves, it leaves a hole nothing else can fill. You didn't just walk away. You left with dignity, with silence. And that's what haunts them most. No closure, no final scream, just absence. That kind of silence. It wraps around their chest like a cold chain. They try to shake it, ignore it, replace it, but it lingers. Because silence from someone real isn't quiet. It's a sentence, a punishment, a mirror. And in that mirror, they finally see who they were when they had you, and who they are now that they don't. And the truth? It hurts. Because while they were busy showing off for the world, you were quietly becoming the one person they'd wish to meet again in every lifetime. And they won't. Not now. Not ever. Because when real walks away, it don't look back. So let them feel it. Let them sit in their decorated prisons, surrounded by noise, but empty inside. You don't owe them your words. You don't owe them your time. What you gave was already too much. You gave more than most would ever offer, and they threw it away like it came easy. But it didn't. Your love came from scars. Your patience came from pain. Your silence came from survival. And now that they finally want what you once gave freely, they gotta learn the hardest truth of all. You don't get forever with someone you treated like an option. They didn't believe you'd ever really walk. They didn't think you'd change, evolve, detach, but you did. You vanished. And now, the loudest sound in their world is your silence, speaking all the words they refused to hear when you were still within reach. And now that you're gone, they've started romanticizing the very things they used to dismiss. The late night calls they used to ignore. Now they wish their phone would light up just one more time with your name. The conversations they once brushed off as too deep. Now they crave that kind of soul-level connection in a world full of surface talk and fake smiles. You see, people don't always want what's real when they have it. They want what's easy, what's convenient. And you were never easy. You were intense, raw, demanding in all the ways that required them to grow up, to show up, to take responsibility. That's why they pushed you away. You weren't hard to love. You just made them face the parts of themselves they weren't ready to fix But now that the room is quiet, now that your light's no longer keeping their darkness at bay, they feel it. That emptiness, that ache, that realization that you were more than they deserved, and exactly what they needed. And the tragedy of it all? They know they can't go back. Not because you're cruel, but because you finally chose yourself. And choosing yourself wasn't a selfish act. It was necessary. Necessary for your peace. Necessary for your healing. Necessary because staying any longer would have meant burying yourself just to keep others comfortable. And you're done with that. Done with shrinking. Done with bending. Done with burning your soul just to light up rooms that never even appreciated the warmth. You sacrificed parts of yourself trying to be enough for people who were never even looking. You gave them love they didn't earn, attention they didn't reciprocate, forgiveness they didn't deserve. And in return, you got silence when you needed support, distance when you needed closeness, doubt when all you ever offered was belief. But the real ones break before they walk. You gave them more than enough chances to step up, to show up, to match your energy. But instead, they played it safe. They let their pride speak louder than their heart. And now, they don't get to speak to you at all. And the irony? You didn't even change to punish them. You didn't go ghost to prove a point. You just grew out of the pain, out of the patterns, out of the version of yourself that tolerated less just to feel something. And the higher you went, the quieter you became. Not because you didn't have anything to say, but because not everyone deserved to hear you anymore. That's what they never understood. That silence wasn't the end of the conversation. It was the beginning of your evolution. You were always the storm, always the sanctuary, always the soul that walked into chaos and made it calm. But now you're the lesson, the one that got away, the voice that no longer answers, the presence that haunts them in peace.